Hello everyone. On behalf of Artham FinoMetry, I welcome all of you to this video series. As you all know, we come out with video series wherein we invite market experts and industry veterans who share their market outlook and industry updates. आज ऐसी ही एक शख्सियत हमारे साथ है और मिस्टर दिनेश बालाचंद्रन, who is a fund manager at SBI Mutual Fund. Before I ask questions on behalf of our investors, let me introduce Dinesh. Dinesh is B.Tech from IIT Bangalore, and he has done his MS from MIT USA, and he is also a CFA chartered holder. Before joining SBI Mutual Fund in the year 2018, Dinesh has earlier worked with Fidelity Investments USA. At SBI Mutual Fund, Dinesh is managing SBI Contra Fund, SBI Balance Advantage Fund, SBI Multi-Asset Allocation Fund, and SBI Long-Term Equity Fund, which is a tax-saving fund. Welcome Dinesh to the show.
Thank you so much.
दिनेश, हमारे इन्वेस्टर्स की तरफ से पहला सवाल आजकल इन दिनों जो आता है वो ये है कि मार्केट हैज बीन ऑल टाइम हाई एवरी डे. BSE सेंसेक्स 70,000 के ऊपर और निफ्टी 21,000 के ऊपर चल रहा है. एंड इन्वेस्टर्स आर नाउ आस्किंग, इज इट अ राइट टाइम टू ऐड fresh investments into equity or not? What are your views, please?
Yeah, the last 3-4 years definitely have been very good for the Indian market. Investors have made good returns by investing in Indian equities, and because of the flows that have come in, which have been so robust, valuations have moved up. There is no doubt about that. Valuations are essentially at the upper end of history when you take a long-term time frame. So the question is, should that automatically make you really cautious? And there my answer is a bit more nuanced, because returns is a function of two things: the expected earnings growth and the multiple that you pay for that earnings growth. Right now, if I'm making an argument that valuations have moved up a lot, that means that I should not count on multiples getting further re-rated. But the positive aspect is, when I look at the earnings growth story, in India, the earnings growth is only now beginning to pick up. When I look at a lot of the cyclical sectors, only now we are beginning to emerge from a decade-long hibernation. That makes me excited, because over the next 3-5 years, even if I count on the multiples getting derated a bit, for many of the cyclical companies, the expected earnings growth is going to more than offset that.
Right.
And so from that perspective, yes, it may not be as good as what we've seen in the last 3 years, because last 3 years, the starting valuation was so low in many cases that people could make disproportionately high returns. That, logically speaking, should come down. But can we make good returns that will handsomely beat most other investment options? I still think the answer is yes.
Okay. तो ये तो आपने 3 से 5 साल का आपका व्यू दिखाया, लेकिन if I refer back, a week back, from a slightly longer term perspective, a week back, the Honorable Finance Minister, while presenting the vote on accounts in the Parliament, she was talking about India being a developed economy in the year 2047. What, according to you, are the key drivers for Indian economy which can take into the developed economies?
Yeah. अगर आप देखोगे, इंडिया में there are two pillars: the services part and the manufacturing part. Now the government has made it very clear that in India, for consumption to stay robust, you need good employment. That extra employment, the government is very clear, has to come from the manufacturing side.
Okay.
So the government is saying that manufacturing share of GDP has to go up, because that is one of the best ways for India to take the next leg from a development perspective.
Correct.
So if I have to take a long-term view and try to think about what is going to get us to that next leg of growth, next leg of development, I think it has to come from the manufacturing side.
Okay.
In many areas, you think about electronics, you think about chemicals, you are now seeing that in energy space as well. India, which used to be very dependent on foreign countries, now a thought process has emerged that we have to become Atmanirbhar, we have to become self-sufficient, which means that a local ecosystem is emerging in each of these sectors. So for me, I would place my bets on manufacturing to lead the way, and lot of the assorted companies to sort of grow quite a bit over the next decade or two, so that we can reach the end goal that we've set for ourselves.
Okay, thank you. My next question is that it is said that in every market rally, the leaders keep on changing. If you believe that markets are going to do well over next 3 to 5 years time, which are the sectors you believe that which will lead the rally,
Right.
And it will continue to do well over next 3 to 5 years time?
Yeah, हम already ये देख रहे हैं कि the stocks and sectors that did really well in the last decade, many of them are not doing well in this decade. So you are perfectly right in saying that in every new bull market, the leaders change.
Correct.
While there are very good reasons why that's the case, let's not delve into reasons right now. But in terms of the sectors that are likely to do well from a next 3 to 5 year perspective, I will again place my bet on cyclical sectors, because consumption was the theme for the last decade. But the end result of that is that a lot of the consumer oriented stocks are now trading at very high valuations. So the headwind in terms of future returns has become so much higher because of the starting valuations.
Correct.
अगर कोई भी कंपनी, कितने भी अच्छा कंपनी हो, अगर 100 times PE पे अगर ट्रेड होगा, for you to generate good returns from that point onwards, it becomes so much more difficult.
Correct.
And that is the problem for a lot of the consumer stocks. Meanwhile, when I think about a lot of the cyclical stocks, they didn't do well at all last decade, but now they are beginning to revive. Now they are beginning to show earnings growth. They have started doing really well in the last 3 years. And my bet is on this trend to continue for the next 3 to 5 years at least. So I will place my bet on cyclical stocks, go for good quality stocks within the cyclical theme, and I think one can still do well from current levels.
Okay. दिनेश, पिछले कुछ सालों से देखा गया है कि गवर्नमेंट का भी फोकस एनवायरनमेंट को भी ध्यान में रखते हुए इट इज नाउ शिफ्टिंग फ्रॉम the traditional energy options to the non-traditional or alternative energy options.
Right.
So some of the sunrise sectors which have emerged in the recent times, like green energy, alternative energy, or hydrogen energy, or EV theme, for example.
Yes.
We are seeing a lot of electric vehicles on the roads. So do you believe that these are sustainable and scalable businesses?
Yep.
And can it throw good opportunities to our investors to make money out of these sectors and out of these themes in the years to come?
Yeah.
I know that SBI Mutual Fund is coming out with one innovative offering to the investors in the form of Energy Opportunities Fund. If you can throw some more light on that also.
We think these are definitely sustainable themes. To just give you a historical example, think about what internet did, right? When internet initially was a very exciting phenomenon, people were wondering whether this is a fad, is just a bubble and it will burst and nothing will come out of it. But now, 20 or 25 years later, when you think about that theme, which are the biggest market cap companies in US? Okay. Most of them are associated with online commerce or something related to internet, cloud computing, and so on, right? Which meant that someone who believed in that theme and wasn't dislodged based on stock price fluctuations in the interim period, if they had held on to these stocks for the last 25 years, they would have been mega winners at this point.
Correct.
Right? The same way, I think the themes that we are talking about, be it green energy revolution, be it EV, these are very sustainable themes, and more importantly, these are themes that we will be talking about even 20 years later. What's the catch? Whenever you have a new theme, the business models are not fully developed yet, which means that you have to do extra due diligence in terms of trying to figure out which companies, which promoters you want to back. Because for every Amazon, there are 100pets.com that essentially failed.
Correct.
Right? So you have to choose the right promoter, you have to choose the right business model. And that is what we have to do. But assuming we do our job right, I think this theme, like be it green energy that we are trying to capture with the Energy Opportunities Fund, or when you think about the EV theme, these are real themes that are going to become more and more relevant with the passage of time.
Okay. And a follow-on question to it is that आप ये new fund offer अभी लेके आ रहे हैं. So what is the rationale for launching this fund at this juncture?
Yep.
And at this time?
Yeah. So अभी आप energy sector देखोगे. What is interesting is that even a year ago, this sector was so neglected, so ignored. Particularly the conventional energy companies, people did not want to even look at them, forget about buying them. So the starting valuation of many of the companies was so cheap that despite the run-up that we've seen in the last 6 to 9 months, valuations still look very attractive.
Correct.
So for us, particularly when we think about this fund versus most of the other sectors or the market in aggregate terms, we still feel this sector has huge potential to deliver market-beating returns.
Correct.
And when we talk about energy, it's a multi-decade theme in my opinion. So while right now the value is there in the conventional energy space, as and when green energy develops further and the business models become more well established, we will transition over to some of those companies. And as a result, in my opinion, this fund is not a 1 to 3 year time frame fund. This fund is a fund that you're supposed to buy and just hold it as long as we are doing a good job within our specific theme. So I have no qualms in recommending this fund right now because valuations still are very cheap. अगर आप valuation of energy index देखोगे, वो Nifty index अभी भी meaningful discount में है. There are still many good quality, good balance sheet companies that are trading at moderate valuations. And so that makes me feel very comfortable launching a fund like our Energy Opportunities Fund at this point in time.
Okay. दिनेश, हमने सब पॉजिटिव बात की मार्केट के बारे में, सेक्टर्स के बारे में. What according to you are the risk factors to the Indian equity market?
Yes.
What can spoil the party or derail this rally?
Yeah. So I'll talk about one domestic risk factor and one global risk.
Sure.
Domestic risk factor में the biggest risk factor is what is going to happen in the upcoming elections. Because अगर even हम अभी Energy Opportunities Fund की बात करते हैं, lot of the positive developments have come because this government has been very thoughtful in terms of the policy choices that it has made. By chance, if there is a change in government, it is going to lead to a lot of uncertainty at the very least. And that will be a big negative for this sector, and my suspicion is it is going to be a big negative for the overall market as well.
Correct.
Now the only redeeming part there is at this point, if I have to handicap the odds of a change in government,
Correct.
particularly post what we saw in the recent state elections, I would assign low odds
Correct.
to that happening.
Correct.
But if I have to think about a risk factor, this has to be the number one risk factor from
Correct.
a domestic perspective. From the global side, while we become sort of inured to geopolitical issues, right? Russia-Ukraine happened, Middle East conflict happened. Now we've sort of gotten used to geopolitical issues. What if the Middle East situation becomes something much bigger in scope, where you're talking about a full-blown sort of war between two sides? That will still be a bit of a shock.
Concern.
And that will definitely affect sentiments, valuations, and so on.
Correct.
So that is a risk factor. Whether it will happen or not, I don't know. So far, it seems like the conflicts are more sort of marginal in nature rather than being a full-blown World War III kind of thing.
Correct.
But you can not rule out as well. Because this stuff is always like very dynamic in nature.
Correct.
So that would be a risk factor to think of from a global perspective.
Correct. Let's hope that these risks do not emerge.
Definitely.
And with that, on behalf of all our investors, I sincerely thank you for sparing your valuable time and interacting with us. I'm sure it will be extremely useful for our investors to take a cue from this discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sparing your time and watching this video series. Thanks a lot.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.